This session deals with the details of the ninth chapter in SS2 Financial Institutions and Services. Financial institutions means the institutions that control finance of a country. Generally, it deals with the institutions like banks and non-banking financial institutions like insurance companies and mutual funds. The Apex Bank of India, or the bank which controls all other financial institutions in India, is Reserve Bank of India. You may have already learned the details of this financial institution, which is considered as the Central Bank of India or the Apex Financial Institution of India, which was established in 1935. Its headquarters in Mumbai. Let's read the important functions of Reserve Bank of India. They are printing of currency, controlling credit, banker to government, and bankers bank. And now we are going to explain one by one. The first point is printing of currency. All currencies except the 1 rupee note are printed by the Reserve Bank of India. The 1 rupee note and its subsidiary coins are issued by Central Finance Department. Second function of RBI is controlling credit. The Reserve Bank of India increases the money supply in Indian economy through the distribution of printed currency and through credit creation. This is made possible by bringing about changes in rate of interest. As rate of interest increases, volume of loans decreases and vice versa. The third function is banker to government. As a banker to the government or the Apex Bank of India, the Reserve Bank of India accepts deposits from the government, sanctions loans and renders other banking services to them. The last point is bankers bank. The Reserve Bank of India give aid and advice to the other subsidiary banks and helps in their operations. It acts as a last resort to all banks in their financial matters. Generally, the financial institutions can be divided into two. Watch the screen, and this gives the details of the different kinds of financial institutions. The prime division is banks and non-banking financial institutions. The banks can also be divided into four: commercial banks, cooperative banks, development banks, and specialized bank. Non-banking financial institution can be divided into three: mutual funds, insurance companies, and non-banking financial companies. Let's discuss the details of the first portion, that's banks. We are very familiar with the different types of banks: cooperative banks, then nationalized banks, private banks, etc. These banks provide two important services to the people. One is they accept deposits, second, they grant loans. Here is a flowchart for you that gives the details of its functions. Accept deposits from individuals, institutions, and government, and it grant loans to the individuals, institutions, and government. Collect a loan from the loan amount with interest from the individuals and institutions, and to give back the deposit amount with interest to the individuals and institutions. The rate of interest on loans will be higher than the rate of interest given for deposits. The difference between these two interests is the main revenue of the banks. For getting the details of the banks, we should go through the historical growth of the banks in India. And the periods can be divided into three. The first phase from 1770 to 1969. Second phase starts from 1969 and ends in 1990. And the third phase 1991 onwards. Let's discuss the details of the first phase, that is from 1770 to 1969. The Bank of Hindustan, established in 1770, is the first modern bank in India. In this phase, the presidency banks, Bank of Bengal, Bank of Bombay, Bank of Madras were established by the British East India Company. The operation and growth of the banks were slow during this phase. And during the second phase, which witnessed a speedy development of the banks. During this period, in 1969, 14 banks were nationalized and 6 in 1980. In 1993, the nationalized bank, New Bank of India, was merged with the Punjab National Bank, and as a result, there are only 19 nationalized banks. In 1991, the third phase starts when the banks started services like ATM, credit cards, phone banking, net banking, core banking, etc. The private banks are introduced new innovative functions at a much quicker pace during this period, and this new phase of the bank is known as new generation banks. As we have already learned earlier, the banks can be divided into four. They are commercial banks, then cooperative banks, development banks, and specialized banks. And now we are going to discuss the details of the commercial banks. These banks, which play a major role in country's financial activities, accept deposits from the public and grant loans to trade, industry, agriculture, etc. These commercial banks can also be divided into two. Watch the screen. One, public sector banks, and second is private sector banks. These private sector banks can also be divided into two: private Indian banks and private foreign banks. Now let's learn the details of public sector banks. The public sector commercial banks are owned by the government. Their functions are controlled by Reserve Bank of India, State Bank of India and its associate banks, nationalized banks and regional rural banks together constitute the public sector banks. And now turn to the private sector banks. The private sector banks are owned by private individual or individuals, even though they are controlled by the Reserve Bank of India. When a private bank which operates under the control of Reserve Bank of India and functions in India, it is known as private Indian banks. And private foreign commercial banks are those banks which have registered in India but have headquarters in a foreign country.